In the news tonight, in their White House summit, His Majesty and President Obama discussed the fight against terrorism, Syria and Middle East peace. On the eve of the ballot for the FIFA presidency, His Royal Highness Prince Ali says that should he win, an independent monitoring group will be assigned to reform football's governing body. And Turkey says it will not be bound by the Syrian ceasefire plan if its security is threatened. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. The global fight against terrorism, the conflict in Syria, and efforts to revive Middle East peace talks topped the agenda at the White House summit talks between His Majesty, the King, and US President Barack Obama. The talks attended by His Royal Highness Crown Prince Hussein also dealt with ways to further bolster the strategic partnership between Jordan and the US, as the kingdom plays a pivotal role in the region. In a joint press conference following the talks, the two leaders said they agreed to maintain coordination and consultation to address the challenges facing the region and the world and enhance Jordanian-US ties. Obama said the talks with one of our most stalwart allies in the world covered the enormous challenges facing Jordan, as well as the situation in Syria, Iraq, and the war against Daesh.
Well, it's wonderful to be back with one of our most stalwart allies in the world, King Abdullah of Jordan, and his delegation. We've had, as usual, an excellent consultation about the enormous challenges that His Majesty and the Jordanian people face in a very difficult time in a very difficult neighborhood. We spent the bulk of our discussion around the situation in Syria, Iraq, and our joint efforts to combat ISIL. Jordan's been an outstanding partner in that process. As I've said publicly, we have seen progress in pushing back against ISIL in territory both in Iraq and now in some portions of Syria, but a lot of work remains to be done. And so the coordination between our nations and other coalition partners is absolutely critical, and Jordan has made an enormous contribution. Jordan's a country that punches above its weight when it comes to the fight against ISIL. With respect to Syria, I briefed him on the conversations that I'd had with President Putin and the cessation of hostilities agreement that has been put in place. We are very cautious about raising expectations on this. The situation on the ground is difficult, but we have seen modest progress over the course of the last week or so with respect to humanitarian access to populations that are threatened. If over the next several weeks we can see some lessening of the violence that's been racking that country, then that provides us a basis to build a longer-term ceasefire both in the north and the south, and allows us to move forward on the political transition that ultimately is going to be necessary to bring an end to the civil war in Syria. It also would allow us then to focus all of our efforts, all the parties in the entire world community, including Russia, in going after ISIL, something that right now they are not doing and are not focused on. We talked about refugees and the burden that Jordan, as well as other countries in the region, are bearing. The Jordanian people have been extraordinarily generous in accommodating the hundreds of thousands of Syrians who've been fleeing the fighting, and the United States is the leading contributor to humanitarian efforts to house and provide basic care to these refugees. But the numbers continue to grow, and I expressed to His Majesty our commitment to make sure that as they continue to be open to helping people in need, they will have a strong partner in the United States, and we will make sure that our money is where our mouth is in terms of looking after these refugee populations. In addition, I'm proud of the both economic and military assistance that we have consistently provided to Jordan. Considering everything that Jordan is doing essentially for the region and the world, and the strains that this has placed their economy under, I think it's important for them to know that the United States is there every step of the way. Finally, we discussed the situation in Israel and the West Bank and the increasing tensions that exist between Israelis and Palestinians there. His Majesty has been a critical component of reducing some of the immediate sources of tension around the Temple Mount and visits there. But we continue to agree that it's important for us to provide both sides a sense of possibility and hope and not simply despair. That's hard to do, and so we have explored ideas in terms of how we can make progress. But His Majesty has continued to be a voice of reason and moderation and tolerance for all the parties concerned in this issue, and we very much appreciate his partnership in the process. So we're lucky to have a friend like Jordan. Hopefully they feel that the United States has been with them during these very difficult times. The good news is that whether it's fighting ISIL, reducing the violence in Syria, and trying to get that country on a track for political reconciliation, trying to bring Israelis and Palestinians to recognize their shared interest in peace. On all these issues, our countries have been in sync, and that will continue as long as I'm president and long after I'm gone, thanks to the leadership of His Majesty. So.
King Abdullah expressed appreciation for Washington's continued economic support to Jordan to take challenge of refugees as well as the military and security domain to enable it to defend its borders. His Majesty also voiced appreciation of Obama's leadership in dealing with the Daesh terrorist group at the time when the international community is attempting to find a political solution to the conflict in Syria. The King said the talks also tackled means to revive the Middle East peace process to bring hope to the Israelis and Palestinians.
Mr. President, thank you very much for really your kind words. I'm delighted to be back here in Washington, and I just wanted to echo the kind words that the President has just said. We are so grateful for the support that you've shown me and our people, our country. Truly, no country other than the United States has given us so much support, whether it's to the economy so that we can take the challenge of refugees to our country, but also to the military and security so that we can defend our borders, but also secure our people. The help that we've gotten from you, Mr. President, from your administration and from the Congress and the people of the United States is something that is very difficult to express in words, and we are very, very grateful for that. I'm also here to thank the President for his tremendous leadership in dealing with the threat of ISIS, Daesh, specifically when it comes to the challenges in Syria. We are all working together as part of the international team to try and find, as the President said, a political solution. Yet at the same time, the threat of Daesh is one that has taken some of our consultations today on how do we defeat Daesh as quickly as possible, not only in Syria but also to reach out to our Iraqi brethren to make sure that they too are part of this struggle against extremism. I do think that we are moving in the right direction. The coordination with the United States is exceptional. And again, I'd like to thank you, sir, and all your institutions for working very closely with us in this respect. So I'm actually leaving Washington very optimistic about the level of support from the United States, the leadership that the President has shown on the issue of Syria, and hopefully that the discussions between yourselves and the Russians will move the process in the right direction, but also looking at the larger picture when we're looking at the challenge of ISIS and their franchises around the world. I think that the future looks much better with the leadership of the United States. We did, again, as the President said, speak about bringing hope to the Israelis and Palestinians. These are obviously challenging times, but hope is something that we have to bring both sides. And we did talk about this issue and to see what we could do in 2016 to bring the momentum into the right direction. But I actually am here just to thank the President and the American people for all the support they've given for our country and how truly grateful I am for your leadership, sir, for your support to me and my people.
The King and Obama discussed the Syrian crisis in light of the latest developments related to the ceasefire and the follow-up on the implementation of the Munich Security Conference communique on the ground. They also talked about the outcomes of the London Donor Conference, calling for implementing them and supporting Jordan through a sustainable approach based on attracting investments and stimulating growth rather than merely providing assistance. His Majesty responded to a question on cessation of hostilities in Syria, fighting Daesh, and the level of cooperation with the United States in this context.
Well, I mean, as I said earlier on, the relationship and coordination with the United States is outstanding, and one of the reasons we're here is to make sure that we're taking the coordination between our two countries to the next level. As to what is happening in Syria, obviously the political process is, I think, the priority at the moment, and we're all supportive of what John Kerry and Sergei Lavrov are doing as part of the political process. But at the same time, making sure that the second part of that dimension is the fight against ISIS and Daesh. And I think that both elements are complementary to each other. Specifically, obviously, to the southern part of Syria is whether or not, based in connection to what the Americans and the Russians are doing, can we get a ceasefire going into the south alongside our border as part of a building block of the political process that helps move the politics of this issue forward between the regime and opposition forces, because at the end of the day, Daesh is the enemy for all of us. And we'll have to see how things are moving between the two foreign ministers. But again, we've got some good initiatives moving in that, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed that the political process continues to move in the right direction.
Also in Washington, King Abdullah met with the leaders of the American Jewish organizations and discussed means to break the deadlock and resume the Palestinian-Israeli talks based on the two-state solution. During the meeting, the King stressed the important role of the Jewish organizations in supporting efforts to revive peace talks, hoping that 2016 will witness a real progress in this path. The King reiterated the need to stop all recurrent Israeli violations against the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Haram al-Sharif, which escalate the conflict in the region. Representatives of the American Jewish organizations expressed their appreciation for King Abdullah's efforts to revive the peace process. Vice President of Government Affairs at G Street, Dylan Williams, said he was pleased to hear His Majesty's remarks describing the King's meeting with U.S. President Obama as fruitful. His Royal Highness Prince Ali bin Hussein should he win the FIFA elections to be held tomorrow, an independent supervision and monitoring group headed by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan will be put together to help FIFA recover and support reforms in the future. The Prince, one of 5 contenders vying for the top FIFA job, has put in place a whole program of action to promote football and address corruption that had rocked the sports governing body and toppled its former boss, Sepp Blatter. More in this report.
I'm running to bring good governance, transparency and accountability, but also because I see how great FIFA could be. FIFA presidential candidate Prince Ali wrote on his Twitter account. Prince Ali said he's the only contender for the post that supports a secret ballot for tomorrow's election. He spoke a day after his request to the Court of Arbitration for Sport for a delay of the vote on concerns over the voting booths was turned down.
It's very difficult for me to judge what would happen in that event. I'm looking to win myself. I think that I'm the candidate that bridges the gaps all over the world. I have support from all parts of the world. At the same time, the way that I've approached it is different than any other candidate. I never pressured anyone. It is a secret ballot. I've never asked for people to declare themselves. And so therefore, I'm very confident that at the end of the day, I will be the president of FIFA.
Worried that delegates might use their mobile phones to photograph their ballot sheets in a vote which is supposed to be secret, Prince Ali had demanded transparent votes. The introduction of a group of respected figures led by former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, is one of Prince Ali's promises to help lead FIFA out of its crisis.
Well, obviously, we have to have change across the board. I will have, first of all, bring in an oversight group to advise the president, which it will be. It will be led by Kofi Annan, and it will be composed of very respected figures from across the world to help us along the process, and in order to restore confidence to our members and the world as a whole. Well, look, I believe this is a democracy, and I have to fight for what I believe in, and I believe I'm the best candidate at this time to get things done.
Regaining trust in the organization will be top of Prince Ali's list of priorities should he win tomorrow's vote.
I think we have to restore, first of all, confidence from the sponsors, from our fans worldwide. And in order to do so, we have to be open, we have to be transparent, we have to bring this organization into the 21st century and have good practice, and do it not in words, but in real action.
Prince Ali is among 5 candidates seeking the FIFA presidency following Sepp Blatter's exposure over one of the federation's worst scandals involving 41 association officials and entities. He's up against South African businessman Tokyo Sex Whale, Asian Football Federation President Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa, former FIFA Deputy General Secretary Jerome Champagne, and EUFA General Secretary Gianni Infantino of Switzerland. Key points of Prince Ali's FIFA election manifesto are support an expanded World Cup and guarantee that no confederation would lose any slots they now have, increase the grants FIFA gives to member associations from $250,000 to $1 million every year, and finally turn the pyramid upside down, giving more power to the national associations, players, coaches, officials, fans and sponsors. Hala Debabne for the News at 10.
Turkish Prime Minister Ahmed Davutoglu said his country will not be bound by the Syrian ceasefire plan if its security is threatened. He said Turkey would take necessary measures against the Syrian Kurdish YPG and Daesh if needed. The ceasefire process put in motion by Russia and the United States could be complicated by Turkey's deep distrust of the US-backed Syrian Kurdish YPG militia, which has made territorial gains in northern Syria near the Turkish border. Turkey regards the YPG as a terrorist group and fears it will further inflame unrest among its own Kurdish population. Syria's opposition has indicated it is ready for a 2-week truce, saying it is a chance to test the seriousness of the Syrian government's commitment to a cessation of hostilities. The YPG said it would abide by the plan to hold the fighting, but reserved the right to respond if attacked. Ankara says the truce is not binding for it.
The ceasefire is not binding for us when there is a situation or a group that threatens Turkey's security, because this is not a matter between Turkey and Syria. This ceasefire is about the sides fighting between themselves in that country. When Turkey's security is at stake, we will not consult or seek permission from anyone. We will do whatever is necessary.
In Geneva, delegations from Jordan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Russia and Iran arrived for a special meeting of the United Nations Humanitarian Task Force on Syria. Chairman of the task force, Jan Egeland, said humanitarian access had improved in the past few weeks and a cessation of hostilities would further bolster the delivery of humanitarian aid. UN envoy for Syria, Stefan de Mistura, said the the International Syria Support Group Task Force on Ceasefires will convene for the first time in Geneva tomorrow. The meetings will be an opportunity for diplomats from member countries of the group such as Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Iran to say whether they endorse the US-Russian proposal. Combatants are required to say whether they will agree to the cessation of hostilities in the 5-year war by noon tomorrow and to halt fighting on Saturday. Some 77 Syrians have entered the kingdom's border through several crossing points in the last 24 hours. A source at the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army said military guards on the frontier provided the necessary aid to the refugees and moved them to refugee camps designated to receive them. It said Royal Medical Services personnel also treated the sick refugees who were from various age groups. The refugee population in the kingdom is on the rise as the daily crossing of dozens of people fleeing war-torn Syria continues. The Jordan Response Plan estimates the total number of Syrian refugees in the kingdom to reach 1.5 million, almost 650,000 of whom are registered as refugees. The Iraqi security forces launched a military offensive to clear the outskirts of Fallujah from the Daesh terrorists. A senior Iraqi army source said in Baghdad that 15 Daesh militants were killed during the crackdown. The source added that the attack against the terrorists saw the involvement of the international coalition and Iraqi warplanes. It explained that tightening the news operation also involved troops from the Iraqi army, police and volunteers from the national crowd. One of the world's most famous steam locomotives, the Flying Scotsman, set off on a new journey from London to York after a decade-long and a £4.2 million refit. Thousands of train enthusiasts lined the tracks and bridges as the steam train made the journey up the East Coast Line after setting off from the King's Cross station in London. Built in 1923 and now the sole survivor of its class in the United Kingdom, the train is considered a national treasure because of its longevity and popularity. Back in 1935, however, the Scotsman was the first train in Britain to reach a speed of 160 kilometers per hour. The Rio 2016 announced the route and some special guests involved in the upcoming Olympic torch relay through Brazil. The Olympic torch will visit 329 cities across each of Brazil's 26 states and the federal district in a colorful ceremony at its headquarters in the center of Rio de Janeiro. One of the greatest symbols of the Olympics will arrive in Brazil's capital from the Games' heartland in Athens on May the 3rd and will be carried 20,000 kilometers across ground and 16,000 kilometers through the air before arriving in Rio de Janeiro for the opening ceremony on August the 5th. Authorities are working on security for the torch relay, one of the most inclusive parts of the Olympic celebration. Some 19 of the world's 50 most dangerous cities are in Brazil. Alexander Dolgopolov defeated top seed David Ferrer of Spain out of the Mexican Open. The 27-year-old Ukrainian beat world number 8 Ferrer 6-4, 6-4 to move into his third quarterfinal of the year. Fourth seed Dominic Thiem joined Dolgopolov in the quarterfinals with a hard-fought 6-7, 6-3, 6-4 win over Russia's Dmitry Tursanov. And finally, the weather forecast tonight: cold conditions are expected in the hilly areas and in the Badia regions, while it will be relatively cold in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Winds will be southeasterly light to moderate. Tomorrow, warm conditions will prevail across the kingdom, with a high of 21 degrees Celsius in Amman and 24 degrees in the Dead Sea. A warm weekend for the southern port city of Aqaba, with plenty of sunshine, as temperatures will soar to the high of 20s, perfect for a sunbathe. Winds will be southerly moderate with calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close here our top stories once again. In their White House summit, His Majesty and President Obama discussed the fight against terrorism, Syria and Middle East peace. On the eve of the ballot for the FIFA presidency, His Royal Highness Prince Ali says that should he win, an independent monitoring group will be assigned to reform football's governing body. And Turkey says it will not be bound by Syrian ceasefire plan if its security is threatened. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Abu Bakr. Thank you for watching and enjoy your weekends.